My hat! Well, let's see if I can sum this up really quick. So, brush motor. This is a brushed motor. This is a Titan 12 turn. I've taken it apart. So the reason why they're called brushed motors is because they have, well, brushes right here. So those are the brushes, and those make contact right here on the rotor. The rotor, this is what rotates. That's why it's called the rotor. Traxxas puts fans in the back. I overheated this motor. You can't really tell, but there's a bunch of coloring, and I actually think some of the epoxy broke. But anyway, I destroyed this one. This is what the rotor is, and the windings are in the rotor. Magnets are on the stator. So it's the stator because it stays, this is the rotor because it rotates. Now, these motors, I mean, they don't take heat very well at all. So a plus for these motors is they are super smooth because it's direct current. They are smooth, right? You get your positive and your negative flowing through, and it's just very, very smooth. So for example, for a crawler, these things are amazing. They really are. They are also very inexpensive. So pluses, they're very smooth, very inexpensive. That's really it. Negatives, brushes will wear. You have to maintain them. You have to clean them. So you can wash the motor. I have a video on how to wash motors. The brushes are constantly rubbing here, so you're going to get more heat. They don't take heat as well as the other motors. So those are some of the cons, which means that this is a 12.5 turn motor. You're going to have to gear it lower than something that's a 14. For example, this used to be I guess it's still a BL-2s. So this is a Traxxas motor that I took apart. You can watch those videos as well. So this one, you can gear higher and it'll take the heat. So if you're running, say, full 5 minutes or more than that, this one will be faster because it'll be able to handle the heat and keep that gearing. This one here will be slower because you have to gear it lower if you want to have the same amount of runtime. If you're just doing, say, a straight pull, you're going 40 meters or 132 feet, whatever the drag distance is for RCs, this one's actually better. It's a little quicker if you gear them the same, but you're not going to be able to run it for a prolonged period of time. Now, let me just compare rotors. So these are the two rotors, right? So this is the brushless from the Traxxas, and this is the brushed rotor from the Traxxas. Significant difference. So torque is force times lever arm. So you go from here to the outside. This is actually not that strong, which is why this motor is so smooth. But to be honest, in a Fortec, it's good enough. It runs well. Actually, even on the Slash, it does well. You just want to have fun. And then you don't have to worry about breaking stuff so much. But to be honest, it's fast enough. But you'll notice the difference. So brushed motors generally have more torque. So I guess that's a plus. That's another plus. But because these handle heat, you can gear them up higher. Top speed is going to be better. It's just, these will ultimately be faster for similar turns. And I'm saying similar turns because I'm comparing these two, right? 12 and 14, similar turns, and I did some test runs on that. Now, another difference is brushed, just a positive and a negative, direct current. Brushless, you have 3 wires. So you have an A, B, C. So it'll be positive, negative, positive, negative, positive, negative, and then it starts over, which is alternating current. So brushless motors are alternating current. So like I said, downside, rotor's smaller, but to be honest, rotors are so strong now, and the windings will also affect it, that you're just going to get better performance out of these if you're looking for speed. Now, this is a brushless motor that's sensorless. Downside of the sensorless, the ESC doesn't know what position the rotor is in, so where the magnets are. So if it fires here and there, but the poles are not aligned where they're supposed to, so say the north pole's not there if it needs it, or whatever the case may be, it's going to cog because what the rotor is going to do is the magnet's going to try to follow the current. So it'll sort of do this. It'll just kind of shift back and forth, and that's the cogging. So it'll sort of stutter, it'll shake, and that's the cogging effect because it's sort of doing that with a hand. Well, I'm using my hand as a forward rotor. So that's the reason why. Which is where censored brushless motors come in. So this is a brushless motor, but this one's censored. They generally have a sensor port. Sensor wire goes to the ESC, and the ESC, through the sensor port, can identify in what position the rotor is in, so it can fire in the correct order, right? A, B, or B, C, or C, A, whatever it is, and create a smooth start. Sensorless, they're all very, very similar, but when you get really powerful motors, for example, the Quicrun with a 3660 motor, you'll definitely notice the cogging on a light car like a Fortec. I mean, I noticed the cogging like you wouldn't believe. If you've watched that video, then you're familiar with the comments I made. But if you're running in a monster truck, you're not going to notice it because you're geared so low that it's not really going to find time to cog. That's the reason why. And if you think about it, I mean, say these were the three things that are firing and the magnet's here. So what it's doing is it's kind of like shifting back and forth or going back and forth until it finds it, and then it rotates. So the downside with using that type of motor on something small is you always have to accelerate quicker in order to get it to really take off. If not, it's just going to sit there and shake for a while. Potentially, it depends. And the stronger the motor, the more noticeable the cog is. This motor is not very strong, so you don't notice the cogging very much. So it doesn't really cog. Versus the Quicrun, you really notice it on a Fortec. You wouldn't notice it on a monster truck really, and not that much. It's mild. Something like this, you don't have to worry about them. They're really smooth. And the Easy Run actually, so this is the one I'm running on my Fortec right now. So smooth. And then if you've seen some of my really old videos with the Bronco, the crawler, and the axe system, that system is so smooth too, but the magnets are offset. So one of the things that you'll notice is these are offset a little all throughout, and that's to sort of help you brake as when you're going downhill. That's really what it's for. But nothing beats, I don't think anything really truly beats a brushed motor when it comes to smoothness, especially on a crawler. Although the brushless systems are so good, you probably wouldn't even notice. I mean, a person like me, not really. But anyway, but these tend to be more expensive. So a motor like this one is, so this motor as of this video is about $27. This motor as of this video is about $60, if I recall correctly. I could be wrong. The combo is about $100. This motor is probably about $150. Could be wrong, but it's over $100. This system, this is actually a very good system for about $108 as of the time of this video. Quicrun is about $100. So less expensive, more expensive, most expensive. Very smooth, high torque because the rotors are so strong. This thing's, I think, just over 2,000 gauss on this thing. This one is as well. The Quicrun, I think, is just under 2,000 gauss for the rotor. So the rotors are very, very strong, and they take heat very, very well, which is why if you're interested in speed runs or just speed, this would be the way to go. If you're interested in something that's really, really smooth, this is the way to go, and it's also inexpensive. But these are really, really smooth. So really, why would you get this over this? Price. If price isn't an issue, then get this one. Unless it's a crawler, and then you can get, like, for example, what is it? 23, I forget the turns. Get a crawler motor, super smooth for those. But let's just talk about other bashing vehicles. You're looking for speed. This will not take the heat as well as something like this or something like this. So at that point, for most vehicles, you're probably going to be looking at a brushless system. It just depends. Budget friendly, not so budget friendly, really torquey, really smooth. In comparison, these will cog a little, but they're so inexpensive. If you're not used to driving a sensorless, you probably won't care. If you're used to driving sensorless, this one will not be as smooth. You'll notice it. Definitely notice it. Now, this is what a rotor looks like for the small touring car motors. And you can see it's a lot smaller. And it's not just smaller than this Traxxas one, it's significantly smaller. Camera's probably not picking it up, but it's super small. If I were to pull this one, this rotor makes this one look small. So that's something else to keep in mind. It's all going to be on the purpose. So if you get these touring car, they're kind of small. You're going to have to gear really low, so you're not going to be able to go that fast. If you get something like this, or that 3665, yeah, those are awesome. Even on 2S. I mean, I ran that thing 2S in the Fortec. The thing goes 85 kilometers per hour on 2S. 55 spur, 35 pinion. And temperature doesn't care. I mean, the highest temperature I read was probably about 112 Fahrenheit or 47 Celsius, something like that. But this is it. So these are sort of the basics. Right? Again, brushless motors. There's no brushes. They run on ball bearings. Very low maintenance. Very high maintenance. You're going to wear out the brushes. This is non-rebuildable, so you just buy another one. Recycle this, toss it in the bin. Now there are the higher end motors are rebuildable, but at that point, if it's not a crawler, right, let's just say you have a monster truck or short course, you should really be looking at a brushless motor. And if budget's not an issue, go with sensorless. If you're on a pinch, then consider one of these, but remember, you have to gear low or else you're going to notice the cogging. That's sort of the downside. Well, that being said, I think I covered the basics as to the difference between direct current and alternating current, the difference between the rotors and the stators for brushed and brushless, and why you should consider, if going with a brushless, a sensored motor versus the sensorless. Sensored brushless is the way to go, unless it's a crawler. Then you could consider that, right? Unless it's a specific motor that's made for crawlers. If you're new to the hobby and you were thinking about motors, I hope this video was informative, or at least entertaining. Thank you very much for watching.
Oh, my hair! My tongue! My rod!